some time has expired after this not order. Welcome to the quarterfinals of ICU 2015. On the proposition side, we have 14.5. And yeah. On the opposition side, we have Korea and Japan Alliance. And yeah. The motion before the House today, this House believes that Eurozone should dictate fiscal policy for its members. Now, without further ado, I would like to call upon the Prime Minister to open the case. Please take a seat.
Given today there's a common currency of euro, however there's no way for these countries to really opt out because Eurozone unlimitedly provides support to them. We, as a responsible government here, we see there's a real need of a common fiscal policy to make the Eurozone progress as a whole and to complete and to fulfill the goal of Eurozone in developing its economy with hand in hand with each and one another. We see that there's a need of central fiscal policy planner. It is because that under current status quo, even if there are some real good suggestions, there is no one to really execute and there's no impartial judgment because right now countries simply negotiate and they negotiate based on different power distances and also the current status of different states, which we see that this is not good for Eurozone as a whole. We see that it's very simple in our model or in the motion. That is just like the decentralized states are decided by the state for certain fiscal policy, and this is how the model works today. We believe it's justified because it's a natural extension of the European Central Bank. Now, let me define fiscal policy. What exactly we are trying to intervene today here in our model. We want to primarily focus on the spending of each country to prevent ultra-inflation or deflation abnormally, which may affect Eurozone as a whole and also ultimately harm themselves in the long future. And countries in Eurozone, they have to oblige to agree with such a limit to be set, which is annually reviewed, and also whenever there are some kind of discrepancies or whenever there are some kind of disagreement or some urgent events, it's open for appeals if possible. So 3 arguments today that I will bring forth to you for the motion, and also for the first motion, it's on the principle of fairness. Second motion, it's on how European Central Bank is already doing something good and it is the right agent to carry out such event. And finally, it's how can it return the control over currency towards some impartial judgment, which is for the benefit of Eurozone. Yes.
Please explain us who are the ones who are going to dictate and decide what kind of fiscal policies are going to be taken. And please explain the decision-making process.
As we have mentioned, we use European Central Bank as a primary agent, which we believe is impartial enough. Firstly, because of the representation, they have all members of executive boards from different member states. We believe that this is a fair representation of interest when compared to now. In the status quo, Germany is trying to dominate because in terms of economic power, sometimes other states cannot say no because of their dependency on Germany. And secondly, we also see that there's a non-renewable regulation that these officials are non-renewable term of 8 years, which we see that they are less biased than normal government officials in the oversight, and we believe that it is acting in the oversight for the best interest of Eurozone. Back to my argument. Firstly, on the principle of fairness. Now we see that how is it exactly fair, because we believe that it's only a natural extension of the European Central Bank. And in the Eurozone, we see that these countries are all voluntarily opt-in. They already have a consent that they have these currencies. Whenever these currencies are being used in the economy, we see that they have to make sacrifices, they have to make trade-offs because they want to use the same currency. And now we also see that the fact that they are using the same currency already implies an implicit consent that they have to give up a certain degree of sovereignty and certain degree of decision-making process in order for the benefits to be shown. And also, we believe that this is in accordance with harm principle, which we believe firstly, they as a common currency, they are now currently acting in their own interest. But not to say that, firstly, let us not debate about whether harming other countries for their own economy is good or not, but ultimately, it's because we are deeply interconnected in multilateral direction. One country's decision may impact others, and ultimately, others retaliate acts, and also some reactive measures may ultimately impact yourselves. We see that this sovereignty over fiscal policy is not absolute and not being justified here. The opposition side has to prove that this sovereignty issue has absolute overtaking of these important issues brought forth to you. And an example to this is like Greece got the sponsor pact for austerity only based on certain conditions to be satisfied. Although there are some minor disputes, but we see that this is exactly why we see there is nothing wrong to intervene on these policies on different countries. Secondly, why European Central Bank is the right agent? I've told you in answering my POI that it's absolutely fair because different countries have different representatives, and these representatives are also less biased than normal governments. So even if we acknowledge that there might be some bias because ultimately they are from different countries, but we believe that it's a better scenario than the status quo, which is the decentralized Eurozone, which every country are acting on their own benefit, which none of the benefits or none of the goals of Eurozone are being fulfilled. And why is it an effective agent? We see that European Central Bank has been very experienced in assessing economic situations and also determining how to react to that. We see the lowering of monetary policy by lowering the refinancing rate from 4.25% to 1% in 2008 to 2009 is actually very effective in dealing with people. And however, the only problem is even if they propose this, the different countries may alter their fiscal policy to derive the maximum benefit, and we see that this is ultimately why the ECB's benefit is not being totally shown. It's simply because now the countries do not have a force, do not have a dictation, that the dictator to tell them how exactly to move forward together. Finally, how does it return the control over currency towards impartial agency? We believe that nowadays, every country in Eurozone have different fiscal policy, different economic situation, and hence they will try to derive the best for their own interests. But we see that history has proven since the Eurozone crisis, neither of these countries can refight back because they no longer enjoy the technological advantage or the structural advantage of their economy. Right now, what they need is genuine banking union. Right now, what they need is a real Eurozone that is connected deeply together structurally, but not being separated by different fiscal policy determination. We see that but only a sustainable currency under the same currency and under same fiscal policy can the benefit of same currency being shown in this policy, in this status quo, and in this model. So that's why we are proud to propose. Thank you.
Now, we'd like to call on Lena to open the case on the other side. Please deliver the speech within 7 minutes ahead.
What's happening in Greece nowadays is these people are refusing to pay tax to government because they don't trust the government anymore, right? In these kind of circumstances, in times of economic crisis, we think it's even more required for people to have faith in their government and legitimize the policies that these governments carry out, right? We think this kind of motion infringes upon the very basic concept of sovereignty, which people have a decision-making power in how their tax money will be spent, right? These kind of arguments will be further elaborated in my argument, but before I move on, 3 levels of rebuttal, right? First level, they need to clarify their model because they have mixed up with fiscal policy and monetary policy, right? By fiscal policy, we're talking about having austerity measures, like managing spending and tax rates, or like inflation rate, or setting up currency exchange rate, right? We think these kind of things are directly related to people. According to like social contract, people should have the power. They have mandated the government to make sure that these people have the ultimate say in deciding how the tax money will be spent because it is directly related to themselves, right? We think that they need to clarify under their model what kind of monetary policy are they talking about, right? Second level, we think European Central Bank is partial, Mr. Speaker. They talk about how, European Central Bank have fair representation of a nation, right? Yes, we agree. However, if we look at the reality, it's not working fine because what's happening is that these kind of European commissions are very interrelated to decision-making of European Central Bank. These kind of European commissions pressurizes sometimes European Central Bank to make favorable decisions for these European commissions, which is mostly composed of France and Germany, strong countries, right? I would like to further elaborate in my arguments. Last rebuttal, they start talking about how using same currency means they share sovereignty, right? We think this is nonsense. It's like using the same measurement system like centimeters or kilograms, right? We are only using European currency as a means to measure your monetary savings, right? The fundamental reason why the European Union was founded is to share economic cooperations and build economic bonds within the country, not share political ideas, right? The reason why it was founded is based upon economic union, not political union, right? They need to, we think in these kind of circumstances, sovereignty do matter, and so they didn't agree upon to share sovereignty when they were into Eurozone, right? But before I move on, any POI?
Yes. The difference between currency and centimeters is that currency affects the trade and affects the entire economy. Example, an expensive currency leads to the loss of export increase.
Yeah, it's a measurement of how much money you have gained from trade, or how much surplus, or how much deficit that you have. It's a measure. It's a form of a measurement that countries uses. It doesn't mean that they're going to share the ideas of how these measurements will be made based in their infringing in their national politics, right? Moving on to our team's sense. We think the economic crisis is part of economic cycles. Where recessions happen, economic flourishing comes after that. It's the way how economy works in domestic level, right? That individuals, nations somehow has to deal with. In these kind of circumstances, we think that they know themselves the best. On the first level, I'd like to talk about why fiscal policy must come from citizens of their own. Second level, I'm going to talk to you about why Eurozone is not capable of catering member states' interests on equal grounds, right? First of all, we think fiscal policy, as I have told you, is directly related to sovereignty of the nation. People's welfare policy, pensions, healthcare, these are directly related to daily lives of these people, right? They need to have money once they retire from a stable job, right? So they need to know how the distribution works. But more importantly, the reason why people pay tax is because people know and understand how the taxation money will be used for their own goods, right? For their own benefit, for their own daily life, right? Under the premise that people can influence the way how taxation will be utilized in assemblies, national assemblies and parliaments, right? In these kind of contexts, when dictated by Eurozone, we think that foreign influence makes these people lose trust in government, right? The motion delegitimizes the policy that government carries out, right? Especially austerity measures requires cooperations from citizens because the government cannot it's government bankrupt, right? They cannot handle without any taxation, getting more taxation from citizens. Having more, welfare cut needs to be based upon how people trust, how people put legitimacy upon governmental policies, right? However, with lessen legitimacy, what will happen, right? People will not appreciate governmental policy, governmental fiscal policy. That's exactly what's happening in Greece nowadays. They're even protesting not to pay tax because they have no trust in government whatsoever. They think if they pay taxes, the money is going to go vanish, right? Because it's useless. They don't trust government anymore. In times of these kind of financial crisis, it's important that more taxation, more trust in government is required to have more faith, more carrying out more austerity measures to overcome economic recession, which can only happen under having their own absolute sovereignty, right? Also, people will lose incentives to work hard when they lose governmental trust and to pay tax, right? Second level of argument, we think that Eurozone decision-making process is very